You're standing inside Hallis Hall. It's a Sunday morning. The Chicago Bears are fresh off an absolutely dominant, commanding 34-10 preseason dismantling of the Cleveland Browns just 24 hours prior. The mood in the building? It's triumphant. It's electric. The agenda for the day is simple: a light, non-padded walk-through practice. The guys are essentially out there in shorts and shells. This specific type of practice is designed purely for mental reps, tweaking installations, and letting the body physically recover after a grueling game. You want to flush the lactic acid out, watch some film on the grass, and go home. But the National Football League is a brutally unforgiving landscape where the illusion of safety can just vanish in a fraction of a second. On this supposedly quiet, heavily controlled Sunday, a single, highly questionable decision on the practice field sent an absolute shockwave through the Bears organization. Today we are dissecting a micro-event, a completely careless, unnecessary tackle in a routine drill that is threatening to trigger a massive, uncontrollable domino effect across an entire NFL roster. So you really have to ask yourself, how does one isolated, seemingly minor practice incident involving running back Kyle Monagai suddenly hold the power to completely derail the NFL's third-ranked rushing offense? Look, we aren't just reading off a standard injury report in this explainer. We are examining the anatomy of a systemic roster crisis. We're going to explore how the Bears' entire offensive identity is meticulously constructed to protect rookie franchise quarterback Caleb Williams. We'll look at why Monagai is the irreplaceable linchpin to their physical, bruising running game, and how his sudden, agonizing limp to the trainer's room has forced general manager Ryan Poles into a high-stakes chess match with the waiver wire. And frankly, it's a chess match that could entirely dictate the success or failure of their upcoming season.
So here is exactly how this crisis unfolds today. We'll start with the immediate cost of a careless practice gone wrong. Then, we'll dive deep into Monagai's crucial role within this offense. From there, we'll unravel the running back dilemma now facing the staff, look outside at scouring the waiver wire, and finally, piece together the ultimate puzzle of finalizing the 53-man roster.
Section 1. The cost of carelessness. Let's look at exactly how a routine practice went so incredibly wrong.
To truly measure the cost here, you have to understand the exact context of what unfolded on the grass. This was not a live scrimmage. This was not a game speed simulation designed to evaluate bubble players fighting for their jobs. It was a highly controlled environment. The guys are in football pants cut off well above the knee. The explicit, non-negotiable instruction from the coaching staff is that absolutely no one is supposed to be tackling to the ground, period. Yet, right in the middle of a play, defensive lineman Grady Jarrett gets caught in an awkward position, reaches out, and physically tackles Kyle Monagai. Now, it didn't appear malicious in intent, but it was entirely dangerously careless. Monagai immediately suffers a knee injury. He gets up extremely gingerly, taking this slow, agonizing 100-yard walk all the way across the practice fields and into the facility alongside an athletic trainer. And incredibly, the carelessness didn't just stop with that one sequence. Moments later, linebacker Devin Bush tracks down Khalif Raymond near the sideline on a passing concept and executes a low tackle from behind, again in a non-contact drill. Fortunately, Raymond escaped uninjured, but the entire sequence of events paints a really vivid picture of a startling lack of discipline on that specific day. A lapse in judgment that has now jeopardized a vital offensive weapon.
Now, the immediate aftermath inside the building was understandably tense. You could probably hear a pin drop in the front office. But then came what felt like a massive sigh of relief for Chicago. According to ESPN's Adam Schefter, initial test results showed no structural damage to Monagai's knee, and the preliminary belief is that he's going to be fine. But look, anyone who has closely followed the NFL for more than a few years knows that initial tests are notoriously unreliable. They're basically a coin flip. They have historically provided false hope to fan bases time and time and time again. You hear no structural damage on Monday, and by Wednesday the guy is getting season-ending surgery. The Bears are still performing a more comprehensive follow-up MRI to be absolutely certain of the severity. So while the acute trauma of the initial scare might have passed, the massive strategic vulnerability it exposed is still sitting right there, staring the front office right in the face.
Section 2. Monagai's crucial role. The power to the speed. Let's break down why this specific player matters so much.
144.5. I want you to let that number sink in for a second. That is the exact number of rushing yards the Chicago Bears averaged per game last season. That imposing, dominant number ranked them third in the entire National Football League. You absolutely do not achieve that level of sustained, bruising ground dominance with just one talented individual. It's impossible. You achieve it with a meticulously crafted system. Historically, this franchise breathes running the football. It's in their DNA. And now, with Caleb Williams stepping into the immense pressure cooker as the highly touted rookie franchise quarterback, the absolute best way to protect him, literally the best way to keep veteran edge rushers from pinning their ears back and teeing off on him, is to maintain a punishing rushing attack that forces defensive coordinators to stack the box. If you can't run the ball, defenses play shell coverage, rush 4, and make a rookie quarterback's life a living nightmare.
Just look at the projected statistical balance for the 2025 season, which is built to mirror last year's exact formula for success. DeAndre Swift is your featured back. He's the sports car. He's carrying the load for over 1,000 yards at a highly efficient 4.9 yards per touch. But Swift absolutely requires a counterpart to survive a brutal 17-game NFL gauntlet. He needs the thunder to his lightning. Last season, Monagai racked up 783 crucial yards, averaging a bruising 4.6 yards per carry. When Swift tires out a defense by forcing linebackers to chase him sideline to sideline, Monagai comes in and physically breaks their will right up the middle. He's the sledgehammer. Taking Monagai out of this equation doesn't just subtract 783 yards from the stat sheet. It fundamentally changes how defenses are allowed to play against DeAndre Swift, and by extension, how they attack Caleb Williams.
Section 3. The running back dilemma. What happens when you look for internal replacements?
When disaster strikes in the NFL, the immediate instinct is always to look inward. Save your draft capital, save your waiver claims, and use the guys already in the building. But for the Bears coaching staff, relying on internal replacements right now creates a massive dilemma. Just look at the stark contrast in physical profiles here to see why this is a nightmare scenario. Kyle Monagai runs with quick, violent bursts and a determined physical forward lean. He is a classic power back who can consistently pick up the tough, unglamorous yardage on 3rd and short and physically exhaust opposing linebackers. Now compare that to the guy standing right behind him on the current depth chart, Salvon Ahmed and Coleman Bennett. Ahmed is 196 pounds. Bennett is just 185 pounds. These are classic, speed-oriented third down profiles. They're built specifically for catching passes out of the backfield and operating in open space. It is a simple physics problem. You simply cannot ask a 185-pound running back to reliably step up into the A-gap and pass block a 250-pound blitzing middle linebacker to protect Caleb Williams. You can't ask them to plunge their bodies into 300-pound defensive tackles 15 times a game. They just do not possess the necessary physical tools to replace the very specific role Monagai plays.
The internal logjam at this position is a scout's literal nightmare. You've got Monagai, currently dealing with a knee injury, leaving a massive void. You have Roschon Johnson, who genuinely is a bigger back, but team evaluators consistently note he lacks that sudden quick burst Monagai brings to the line of scrimmage, putting Johnson squarely on the roster bubble. Then you have Salvon Ahmed, who has actually outperformed Johnson throughout training camp, but again, completely lacks the necessary power profile we just talked about. And finally, you have Britton Brown, a practice squad veteran who remains a definitive long shot to make the final team. The Bears usually like to keep 4 running backs on the active roster, but they might not have the mathematical luxury to do so this year, given their pressing depth needs at other vital positions. Replacing Monagai from within is proving to be a nearly impossible task.
Section 4. Scouring the waiver wire. Looking outside Hallis Hall.
When the exact answers you need aren't inside your own building, you are abruptly forced to scour the waiver wire. You have to try and find your championship solutions on someone else's trash pile, and the timeline here is utterly unforgiving. On Saturday, you are riding high. You're feeling invincible after a 34-10 preseason win over Cleveland. By Sunday, the Monagai injury throws a massive wrench into your entire offensive strategy, and rapidly approaching is August 31st at 5 p.m., the final 53-man roster cut deadline. If the Bears decide they must have outside help to secure a power running back, they have to meticulously scout the waiver wire as the other 31 teams make their final cuts. But waiver wire priority is a high-stakes gamble. Relying on other teams' cast-offs is dangerous. Worse yet, every single player you claim off waivers requires a corresponding, agonizing roster cut from your own team. And that is exactly where the defensive side of the football gets dragged into this mess.
Take a second to digest this quote from Coach Ben Johnson regarding defensive lineman Jamari Croma. You could feel his presence every single snap. To see him have some success on the field like that was huge. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why are we suddenly talking about an undrafted defensive lineman when the crisis is in the offensive backfield? Because of the domino effect. The ripple effect of Monagai's injury directly threatens the livelihood of guys exactly like Croma, who are fighting tooth and nail just to keep their NFL dreams alive. Look at what Jamari Croma actually accomplished against the Browns. 6 tackles, 2 sacks, and 3 tackles for loss. He was an absolute menace on the field. He was practically unblockable at times. Yet despite this dominant tape-popping performance, Croma is currently projected to be left off the final 53-man roster. Why?
Because the Bears are incredibly desperate for proven, veteran pass rush help, to the point where they are utilizing precious time visiting with veteran defensive end Marcus Davenport. But this creates an agonizing paradox for the front office. Davenport brings a brutal injury history. He's played a total of just 14 games over his last 3 combined seasons. He is constantly unavailable. So the Bears have to decide, do they keep the young, productive, healthy, and hungry undrafted player in Chroma, or gamble on the oft-injured veteran in Davenport? And here's where the domino falls. If they are forced to claim a running back off waivers just to replace Mo Nangai, the cruel math of the 53-man roster means they might literally have to cut both of these defensive linemen to make room.
Section 5. Finalizing the 53-man roster. This is the ultimate puzzle.
Building a successful NFL team is never just about keeping the 53 most athletic guys in the building. It's about balancing a highly fragile ecosystem where one misstep changes everything. The interconnected fragility of an NFL depth chart is staggering. Look across the board here. At running back, they desperately need a power runner to protect their rookie quarterback, leaving guys like Rashawn Johnson and Salvon Ahmed fighting for their professional lives. On the defensive line, they urgently need a reliable pass rusher, creating the intense Kamara versus Davenport dilemma. In the secondary, you have a promising young player like Beanie Bishop Jr., who just secured 2 impressive interceptions against the Browns, and safety Elijah Hicks, both sitting right on the bubble. If the Bears are forced to use a roster spot to patch the sudden hole left by Mo Nagai's knee, that 53rd spot has to come from somewhere else. The human element of this business is absolutely brutal. It might mean cutting a defensive lineman who just had 2 sacks, or waiving a promising young cornerback who just had 2 interceptions, all because a running back got tackled awkwardly in a Sunday walkthrough.
The August 31st scramble is going to be an intense, high-stakes chess match for general manager Ryan Poles. We're in year 3 of his rebuild. The honeymoon phase is over. With an expectant fan base and a highly demanding ownership group watching his every single move, the pressure is immense. A single missed evaluation right now could cost them a critical game in December that dictates a playoff berth. He has to perfectly evaluate the health of his own injured players. He has to accurately gauge the long-term development of his bubble guys, and he has to anticipate which hidden gems other general managers are going to inevitably throw onto the waiver wire. Does he blindly trust the initial MRI results on Mo Nagai and just stand pat? Or does he aggressively claim a bruising back off the wire knowing full well it means shattering the NFL dream of a guy like Jamari Chroma or Beanie Bishop Jr.? Every single decision carries massive, overarching consequences for the entire future of this franchise.
Which leaves us with this final provocative thought to consider. Will a completely careless, deeply unnecessary practice tackle in the middle of a relaxed August afternoon ultimately rewrite the Chicago Bears' entire season strategy as they project into 2026? It serves as a stark, cold reminder of how incredibly quickly fortunes turn in the National Football League. One awkward collision in a non-contact drill can compromise a top-tier rushing attack. It can ruthlessly expose the hidden vulnerabilities of a depth chart and force a front office to make heart-wrenching roster cuts they never, ever planned for. That is the reality of life in the NFL.
We are going to be obsessively tracking every single move Ryan Poles makes as that unforgiving August 31st deadline approaches. If you want to stay ahead of the curve and understand exactly how this 53-man roster takes shape under pressure, make sure you subscribe to NFL Nexus right now. Hit that like button if you found this explainer helpful in breaking down the true stakes, and I want to hear your voice down in the comments. Who do you think ultimately survives cutdown day, and how should they solve this sudden running back crisis? Let us know. And if you really want to support the deep dive analysis and cinematic storytelling we do here, consider becoming a channel member. Until next time, keep your eyes on the waiver wire.